Hey there, good people, it's the Crippled Critic, and this week I'm going to talk about the critically acclaimed game Firewatch. So, the game is a first person mystery adventure game about a national forest fire lookout named Henry. It takes place in the year 1989 after the Yellowstone fires. And although it begins uneventful, strange things start to happen to Henry and his supervisor Delilah, which lead to them uncovering secrets about the park they may soon regret. Firewatch was made by an indie development team in California that goes by the name Campo Santo. The lead writers and directors were Vanaman and Olly. Olly also did the artwork for the game. Funny story actually, Vanaman was the original lead writer of Telltale's The Walking Dead game, which is actually one of my favorite games of all time. He and a few others left Telltale to make their own games after the Walking Dead game was made. They branched off and created the Campo Santo team. The development team for Firewatch were inspired by advertisements for the National Park Service, but also a camping trip that the team went on to Yosemite National Park. Almost the entire team went there and they visited a preserved watchtower and took a lot from that experience. As for the control options, it seemed like they were pretty thorough. There were subtitles with big bold text and a brightness feature, although I would say the game is already pretty bright on its own. For the controls, I should probably mention that I only played the game on PC, mostly because I'm not very good at first-person games. After a few years back, they started kind of doing, the two control sticks where one is used for aiming and the other is move, and I'm not really good at that, so I always kind of look to PC games when I'm playing games like that. Usually PC games give you a lot more options to change your controls. Again, when playing on the PC, I have a PS3 controller that I hook up to the computer, and I use a third-party program that allows me to map the keyboard buttons and mouse buttons to my controller. Every button in the PC version of the game can be remapped, and as far as I can tell, this isn't the case for the console versions. So I would definitely recommend the PC version for disabled gamers. Having said that, it's unfortunate that the development team made every single button kind of important. What I mean by that is there are several different, simple functions that you do, mostly involving exploring or interacting with objects. But I personally believe that a lot of these buttons could have been made just to be one. Like, for instance, the radio that you use, you have the option to turn it on and select certain dialogue options within it, but I think it could have easily been one button instead of three. Also, there are several things that are completely optional, like the flashlight or the compass, so I feel like it could have easily been put into an inventory system instead of using up several different buttons. Having a toggle option would have been really helpful for the radio because you spend most of the game holding down that button. There is a toggle option for the running mechanic though, which is nice. Still, I was definitely able to play it, I just had to get used to the setup. I believe gamers with fine motor skill impairments shouldn't have much trouble playing this, as I don't remember there being any quick motions you have to do, and there's no real consequences for going slow. There aren't any timed events, and not to spoil anything, but not really any combat in the game either. You'll mostly be exploring, looking over the park, collecting items, and occasionally attaching a rope to a wall in order to scale the terrain. There are plenty of dialogue options in the game that open up different conversations, but they tend to use the telltale tactic as far as choice, meaning it's more of the illusion of choice, not any actual option to change the ending of the game, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just means that replay value isn't, really there for this type of game. Still, there is a way to kind of change the relationship that you have with Delilah through these options, and by the end of the game, that will change based on what you choose. Despite that, the game never really felt slow to me because of all the places you could explore. To me, the map was pretty expansive, but I wouldn't actually say it was open world or anything. It's a little limited, but for the purists out there, there is an option to remove your location on the map you're given, just to strengthen the immersion if you want. I can guarantee that you'll be able to memorize the whole map by the end of the game, but I think that's kind of a good thing considering there's a lot of backtracking by the last fourth of the game. Some of the most fun I had was searching for all the optional supply caches on the map. There's actually a subplot between these two men who were the previous lookouts for the park. The notes they share between each other are actually some of the more interesting things you can collect. As far as the audio, I think disabled gamers with hearing impairments should have no problem at all playing this game. There are subtitles, like I said, and as far as I remember, every line of dialogue has subtitles, which is good because dialogue is pretty important in the game, as you'll mostly just be interacting with your supervisor Delilah throughout all of the game. Nothing important is ever heard off screen, or if it is, it's intentional for building suspense, so deaf players should be good to go. Gamers with visual impairments shouldn't have any trouble playing this either. Like I said, there is a brightness feature that you can change, but again, the game is pretty bright as is. I would say maybe the only part that you would need to maybe use a flashlight is during the cave expedition sections of the game. Even then, the game is really bright, even indoors, so I wouldn't worry about it, but the flashlight option is there. Colorblind players should be fine. There are bright greens and orange in the game, but none of the colors are important in order to advance, so you should be totally fine. So where Firewatch excels in its presentation, the really beautiful artwork is great, and the scenery is lush, and the soundtrack is subdued. It really immerses you in the experience, and you feel like you're there, talking with Delilah and having small talk with a friend. The less said about the story, the better, in my opinion. A big part of the suspense is just not knowing what's about to happen in the later conspiracy, so I won't say too much about that. But I will say that the game tries to build the relationship between the two main characters, and that's sort of the driving force behind the narrative. They do this with amazing dialogue and really great voice delivery. Honestly, Firewatch has some of the best dialogue and voice acting I've ever heard in the game. There's just something about the way the dialogue taps into that genuine, uncensored way of talking you get when you're alone with friends.
Okay, you've killed 3 husbands. You're a black widow and you're just out here until the heat dies down and then you'll kill again.
Ooh, very good. Bravo, Henry.
Okay, I sleep now?
Not quite. Now you.
Okay, good night, bye.
Let's see. I don't know anything about you, but maybe you just really like trees. Maybe it's a borderline fetish. A tree fetish.
Good night.
Sadly, the story kind of ends on a disappointing note, as you probably heard before, but I think this game in particular is way more about the journey, not the destination. The suspense in this game just builds and builds, and I'll definitely admit that I could not stop playing this game from start to finish. I couldn't stop, and it took me about 6 or 7 hours. So, it's been a while since I've played a game like that. I had a thoroughly enjoyable experience. Maybe not a whole lot of replay value, but I seriously recommend this game. Play for the intrigue, but stay for the characters. Henry and Delilah are worth it. Anyway guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.